3 weeks after bringing our daughter home on hospice, we packed up a Toyota Camry and drove across the country. Fast forward a few years later, we would get on a plane to go to Walt Disney World as a Make-A-Wish family. All 5 of us would deliriously fall sick in a hotel room, wondering if we were even going to make it home. So yeah, this episode is about traveling with a medically complex child. The beautiful parts and the terrifying parts. When Ellie was about 3 weeks old, she had her first nasogastric feeding tube placed. This was the temporary kind, the one that can be replaced as needed, no surgery required. When we were discharged from the hospital, they sent us home with something I had never even heard of before. A car bed. Not a car seat, you heard that right, a car bed. Because she couldn't sit safely upright without her oxygen levels dropping, this allowed her to lay flat, securely strapped in, crash-tested, certifiably approved, and keep her oxygen levels where they needed to be. We already had supplemental oxygen support at home through hospice, so suddenly between these passive feeds, the supplemental O2, and now this fancy car bed, we had just enough support to make something impossible possible. So after meeting with all the specialists and hearing the full list of diagnoses, 3 heart defects, floppy airways, possible sleep apnea, we asked a question we almost couldn't get out. How soon can we travel with her? I remember expecting the doctors to scoff and look at us like we had 2 heads each. But instead they looked at each other, nodded, and then looking back at us almost in unison said, "We'll get you what you need. You can go whenever you're ready." Okay, pause, because I know what you're thinking, and I want to be really clear about something. We weren't being entirely naive. We knew what we were saying. We knew full well that she could die before we got back home. In our destination city of San Antonio or somewhere along the way home to Tennessee. This was not going to be a fail-safe, polished plan. It was not something we thought we would get to explain to her later in life. All we knew was this. Today, she's here. Tomorrow looks pretty plausible. Beyond that, we have no idea. So we made the decision. We have family that needs to experience her. Let's get her there while we can. Because we didn't want to live with the regret of not taking her when we had the chance. And we had to actually say it out loud to each other. This could happen. And if it does, it's not our fault. We're loving her and protecting her the same way in this car or in that house with her cousins as we would be sitting at home. I even had to call hospice and talk through the logistics. What happens if she passes out of state? Who do we call? What do we do? Those are conversations you don't expect to be having about a road trip. But we had them. And then the very next morning, we packed up that Toyota Camry with our toddler and our 4.5-pound medically fragile newborn, and we left. That car was packed to the absolute brim. Oxygen tanks, feeding tube, backup pieces, backup supplies, tape for everything, extra everything, and fear. A lot of fear came with us, but also determination. I like to call it challenge accepted. We took the Gulf route so she could see the beach. I still remember standing there, holding her at the water's edge, thinking, this matters. This counts. We took more photos on that trip than I think I had ever taken. Because in the back of my mind, there was this question always there. What if this is it? What if this is the only time these people get to know her? What if one day they miss her? I want people to miss her. I want her life to reach beyond us. And I need to tell you something else about that first trip. We learned just how much tension a family can hold in one car. Because Ellie also taught us something very quickly. She was extremely committed to pulling out her very carefully taped NG tube. And she did not waste time. The first night of the trip, it came out. Just out. And I remember staring at it like my brain had completely stopped working. Nobody teaches you what to do when you're out of state in a hotel room with a medically fragile baby and a sleepy toddler and a very tired, having driven a long way, husband, and the NG tube pops out. Especially considering I did not stick around to be taught how to do it by the nurses at the hospital. So I went to the nearest ER. We're outside of New Orleans, and I take her there. By the way, I still get weekly emails from that hospital system to this day. I have no idea how to unsubscribe. I've tried. At this point, I think we're just emotionally connected forever. And then she did it again in San Antonio, because of course she did. So then we also got a tour of Children's Hospital there in San Antonio. In fact, by the time we were heading home, and it happened again, at that point I started realizing this wasn't just a trip to see family. This was also a tour of the Gulf area healthcare systems. And this continued for weeks, by the way, after we got home. Until finally my hospice nurses very lovingly stopped suggesting that I might want to learn and instead insisted, "You will learn this today." So I did, reluctantly. Now I am a proud graduate of what I call the Hard Knocks Academy of NG tube placement. No ceremony, no certificate, just survival. And yes, I have even answered the occasional Facebook message from another mom in panic trying to place one. So I guess it did have a ripple effect value after all. Ellie became my shadow. Where I went, she went. Stores, trips, meetings. She was never more than 10 steps from me. It felt like I was trying to pack a lifetime into every single day. And honestly, I was. On another trip, my father-in-law carried her through the gas stations and would walk up to strangers and say, "Have you ever seen a real-life miracle? Well, you're looking at one." I felt that too. I wanted everyone to know her. I wanted everyone to have an Ellie story, because that's how you make life last. At the same time, there was something I couldn't unfeel, that I was somehow borrowing her, like I had been entrusted with her for a window I couldn't see the edges of. I remember telling a friend of mine when I ran into her at the gas pump, I feel like she belongs to God. I'm tending to her, and I'm going to be held accountable for how well I loved her while she was here. And even as I said it, I knew I sounded a little intense, maybe like I was trying to be poetic or extra holy or something, but I wasn't. I was just surviving it. And I knew this. She was going to be deeply loved and fully experienced for however long she was here. We didn't stop there. Beach trips, mountain trips, life kept moving. And then we got a Make-A-Wish trip to Walt Disney World. It was Christmas 2024, and we were picked up in one of those big, flashy Mercedes Sprinter vans with bright lights on the inside. And my daughters were so excited because they had the tiny little bottles of water and this special little ice machine. We got taken to the airport where we had a nonstop flight to Orlando, priority boarding, medical gear, of course, for Ellie, backup supplies for backup supplies, of course, matching t-shirts that we had made just for the occasion, the double stroller so that Ellie and her little sister could ride together everywhere like you do. We were ready. And Disney really is magical, guys. We didn't wait in lines. We turned corners and suddenly one-on-one moments with characters were just happening. There were princesses. There was food like you would not believe. There were experiences at every turn. And then at one point we rounded a corner and there he was, the mouse himself, just us and Mickey. It felt like this is what yes gives you. And then day 4 hit. And when I say hit, I mean hit all of us like a Mack truck. The perfect trifecta: flu, pneumonia, and strep. All 5 of us. We were stuck in that hotel room burning up with ridiculous fevers of 101, 102, and above. Exhausted, delirious, and I'm not exaggerating when I say there was a moment where it felt like, are we going to make it home? Because when you're the mom, you're the system. If you go down, everything feels like it's collapsing. I remember thinking, God, I am not fit right now to take care of them. And that is one of the scariest feelings I think I've ever had in my life. My husband was just as sick. We were both down. It was a nightmare. I know what some of you are thinking. You're wondering, why didn't you just go to a clinic right there in Florida? And the honest answer is, mostly because I was afraid. I was afraid they would take one look at Ellie on her CPAP and her oxygen, and they'd send us somewhere unfamiliar to a hospital that doesn't know her. We would get stuck in a system that didn't understand us. And also, I had 102 fever and was not thinking very clearly. That's the truth. But we made it home. Barely. We went straight to the clinic, of course, got antibiotics, and started to recover. I learned something I still carry. 2 things can be true at the same time. Yes, you can go to Disney. And yes, you might get very, very sick doing it. So honestly, 3 days might be the sweet spot before germs catch up with you. I'm only half kidding. So we've had these incredible once-in-a-lifetime moments. We've also had moments where we're scared out of our minds in hotel rooms far from home. I would still say yes again, because I know what it feels like to want to hide, to protect, to stay safe, to shrink life down. And sometimes you should, and we do. We still do. But I also know this. If we wait until everything feels safe, we will miss the life we are trying so hard to protect. So we say yes. Carefully, prayerfully, sometimes a little recklessly, because she's here and she's ours right now. And we want her to touch every part of our lives while she is. Now, before we wrap this up, I want to take a few minutes just to talk directly to you, the parent listening to this, who's thinking, can we even do this with our family? And I am certainly not going to tell you that you should, but I do want to make sure that if you do, you're a little more prepared than we were the first time or even couple of times that we did this, because we learned a lot of this the hard way. So I'm going to cover a few things here in this practical rundown. First off, oxygen support. If your child is oxygen dependent or even might need it intermittently, talk to your DME provider and ask them specifically about TSA-approved portable oxygen concentrators for air travel. A lot of families don't realize those exist, and if you are a Make-A-Wish family or working with any other wish granting organization, you can ask them too, because they often help coordinate equipment like that for travel, and it can take a huge weight off. If you're traveling by car, you want layers of backup, your main oxygen system, at least one portable tank for emergencies, and I would say reach out to the DME provider in the town where you're going, because a lot of times all they need is a prescription and your proof of insurance. They can have a backup tank waiting for you there in town, so you're not having to pack more than one. Also, a way to power your equipment in case you're going to lose access to electricity. For some people, that looks like a portable power station in the car, like a rechargeable battery generator that can run small medical equipment like your suction machine and whatnot. Something that you can charge at home, keep in the car, and then really not even think about it until you need it. Now, feedings. If your child is tube fed, pack more than you think you need, and then add one more. Extensions, backup extensions, extra supplies, stuff spills, stuff spoils, stuff gets left behind. And here's something I really did not think about until I lived a moment of panic. If you're traveling far from home or even just within an hour of home, take the entire button replacement kit, not just pieces. I personally have this in the permanent things in my van list, okay? If you just have the pieces, you're likely to forget things you wouldn't even realize you need. Those kits include things like the lubricant pack that you need and the extra button and the exact size syringe you're going to need to refill it with water. So don't try to be taking one or two pieces along with you and think, I got this. Just grab the whole kit. You never know when you're going to need it. I will tell you a real life moment that taught me this the hard way. We were out and about once and Ellie's button popped out. I don't even know how. It managed to rupture. The whole thing it's like it just exploded. I have no idea how it happened to this day. But her stoma, I did not realize, was a very fast closing one. Some of our kiddos, this is not an issue. Some of us, it really is. We're talking down a size per hour that it's out. Okay. So I had to take her to the ER and wait and redilate her button because it had been out for a few hours by the time all was said and done. Save yourself this trouble if you don't have the whole kit on you for whatever reason. Another thing you can keep in your car is either a catheter, a suction catheter, or one of those small nasal pieces that goes to a suction kit. Either one, you stick that right there in the stoma when the button comes out, and you're going to keep that stable size that you need when you are able to replace it at home, or maybe you do end up having to go to the emergency room to get a new one, but at least you're not going to have to go through the waiting game of redilating the stoma. So please learn from my mistake and have that on hand. That one thing alone is such a game changer to give you peace of mind when you're out and about. Next, hotels and safe sleeping spaces. Okay, another thing we learned as a family with 3 small children. One of them not really fitting in a pack and play anymore, not really fitting in a crib, and really not safe to sleep in a full-size or queen-size bed without something to keep her from rolling off the sides, right? Toddler rails. Ask for toddler rails. If your child is too big for the pack and play, most hotels will have them if you ask. Or if they don't, they're relatively inexpensive, but they are worth it to keep your child safe in whatever circumstance you find yourself. It just gives you that peace of mind that you feel a little bit safer in an unfamiliar space. Next, it's changing spaces. Now, no one really prepares you for this part, and a lot of people don't think about it. But once your child is past that early infant stage, there's just nowhere to change them. They're too heavy, they're too long, they might be too mobile. We had to get really creative, and in our minivan, we've actually permanently converted one section of the back into a changing space for Ellie. So we took out one of the seats, we make everything flat, we make it cushioned, we keep plenty of disposable changing pads to lay under her that we can take everywhere we go. And when we travel longer distances, I like to keep the two biggest suitcases or items that we're taking right on top of that, because I don't want to have to pull off a million tiny pieces of whatever we've packed, like the kids' small suitcases or toys or snacks or whatever, out of there in order to get to where I'm changing her. I like to just pull one or two large pieces of luggage out of the way, change her, put her back, and pop those pieces back in, and we're on our way. This is so much easier to get moving again. And it's quite frankly one of the reasons I prefer traveling by car over planes anyway. Now, speaking of traveling around by car, there are a few things on my list that I keep permanently in the van at all times. A full pack of disposable chuck pads. If you can't get a hold of these, honestly, puppy pads are great. If that's what you have access to in a pinch, go for it. A full box of diapers, wipes, always lots of wipes, because when you're on the road, you don't get the luxury of, oh, I'll grab it later. Later is sometimes just not a time that ever presents itself. So finally, I want to say this, and I want to be clear. None of this is about doing it perfectly. It is about reducing panic. It's all about building margin so that when something unexpected happens, and it will, you're not starting from zero. Because even with all of this, things will still go wrong. They will. We are living proof of that. But having a few of these systems in place has been the difference between panic and, okay, we got this. So if you're listening to all of this and you're thinking, this feels like way too much right now, that is totally okay. Staying at home is not failure. Waiting is not failure. Both the going and the staying can be love for your child, for your family, for yourself. Maybe your yes doesn't look like a cross-country drive. Maybe it doesn't look like Disney. Maybe it doesn't even look like leaving your house right now. Maybe your yes is quieter than that. It's letting someone come over when it feels easier to say no, or taking that picture even when everything feels messy. Maybe it's trusting that small nudge in your gut that keeps whispering, this matters. Because here's what I've come to understand. If you are loving a medically complex child, you are already being led. You are already paying attention in ways most people never have to. So when that instinct rises up in you, not fear, not pressure, but that steady, grounded knowing, you should trust it. Not because it guarantees an outcome, but because you are not walking this as blindly as you may think. God is in it. In the yes, in the no, in the staying, in the going. Whatever you choose, you are still loving your child well. You are still showing up. Still doing something incredibly sacred that only you were entrusted to do. So take the next step that feels right for your family. Hold it with open hands and trust that it counts. This is a little extra momming.